right, my friends, I am here with Mike Isaacson, who is a Broadway producer of great esteem and renown. He also just won the Tony Award. We are speaking in June of 2025 because his regional theater, the Muny, which to call it a regional theater feels so limiting because it has a global appeal. Um, we met when I was doing Your Good Man, Charlie Brown, and Mike Isaacson was a baby producer at the time. He's also won
Okay.
Tonys for Fun Home, and he's just been the most beloved human in the Broadway space. And he's my friend. Welcome, Mike Isaacson, to the podcast. Hello.
I am so happy to be here. I'm so excited to be talking to you. I love your podcast. I love listening to people I've worked with, people I hope to work with. It's just fantastic. You're the best. You're the best. You're the best.
Well, you are coming off what I would imagine uh, a very heady week, not only because you are a summer theater, are you in full on, for people who will get to watch this podcast on YouTube, they'll see behind you many pieces of paper
I
with
am
lots of
all the
information.
things.
They're going to see your brain,
All the things.
your brain on papers.
Yeah.
Um, but let's just start like in the moment and then we'll go back and forth in terms of our timeline. But talk a little bit about this past Sunday night, the Tony Awards, how you found out you were going to, you and your, it's not just you, as you were very clear to
Yeah.
highlight. Talk about the Muni's Tony Award and sort of how you found out that was going to be happening.
Um, so there is no process for the Regional Theater Tony Award. It is something that is given, right? And it goes to the American Theater Critics Association and it goes to different sort of bodies of the Tony Awards. And um, I had sort of given up that we would ever get it,
Hmm.
because if there was a natural time to sort of say, oh, would have been the 100th, and that didn't happen. And, awards are funny things. You win, you lose, so you can't attach. Um, and and so what happened was um, there was a blog post sometime last fall. I woke up this morning, I woke up, my phone is blown up, and some blogger, some theater blogger, had written an article saying, "Is the Muny the best theater in the country, and why don't they have the Tony?" And I thought, oh, that's interesting. Somebody sees that, like, okay. It was lovely, but you just go about the work. And they announced like the Tony Honors, there was nothing, and then they announced the nominees, and I was just sort of used to it, like, okay. And I know they don't give it every year, so you never know.
Right,
Right.
right.
It's just sort of there. Then my Broadway producing partner, our beloved Kristen Caskey, on a show we're developing, working, sends me a text. Hey, can you do a Zoom Monday at 9:30 to talk to this attorney about a rights deal we're working on? I'm like, yeah, 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 fine. So it's Monday morning. I'm at home doing the work, pop up the Zoom. We're just sort of catching up. How was the weekend? And, blah, blah, blah. And suddenly Jason Lax, who's the president of the league, pops in and then pops out. And I just thought, oh, he and Kristen must talk a lot of time. He's in the wrong Zoom. I do that all the time. I'm in the wrong story. You're like time zone, the wrong Zoom, right? Happens all the time to me. So I didn't think anything of it, blah, blah, blah. And then suddenly Jason pops back in and I'm sort of like, I'm not sure what's happening here, but he's amazing. So I'm like, hey, Jason, how are you? And we're just sort of talking. And I'm sort of midway texting Kristen on the side, like, wait, I'm halfway to the text.
The name.
And then Caskey's just looking at me. And suddenly I look at Jason, he has this little smile. And I was like, I've been set up. And Kristen said, yes, you have. And then Jason began to speak, and I will get teary-eyed right here. He just begins to say some extraordinary things about the Muni. And it was a moment, and I was so happy because I was at home. So my husband could hear it all. He was right on the other side. He was like looking. And so it was just amazing. And I was just sort of frozen. And, like I said, you have to be careful with awards and they're just complicated, but it meant a lot. It meant a lot because all my colleagues here and this community, we've really worked hard on the transformation of this theater over the last decade or so,
Right.
or what it's become. So to have that recognition, it was just great. It was just great. Yeah.
Well, when I first met you in 1998, because we came to Broadway in 99, but we started the show in 98 with out of town tryouts. Um, one of them being the Fox in St. Louis during the biggest snowstorm in the history of all snowstorms. It's probably still the biggest snowstorm in the world, the way I tell it.
I
Um,
believe it is true.
it's true. But you were at the very beginning of this journey. I think if I went to IBDB and you and Kristen Kasky, who now are just the most beloved centerpieces of the Broadway producing community, um, were associate producers on that show at the time. Is that the right title? I think that's
Yeah, yeah.
something like that. So Fox Theatricals, which is, you have two, most people are looking for work. You have like so many huge jobs that you are balancing, and it's really amazing to me that you are doing them both with such elegance and so well. But can you go back to the beginning with Fox Theatricals, before you and Kristen became your own entity in the way that you are, and the history of that?
Yeah. So what it was initially was the Fox Theater in St. Louis, which, as you know, is the Turing House. And we will talk about that night later because it remains heavenly memory. Noises out, noises off had nothing on that night. Um, and there was the Fox Theater in St. Louis, and the Fox Theater in St. Louis was initially 3 to 5 local business philanthropists, people who believe in the city, really led by Mary and Leon Strauss. And the whole thing was going to go to the Wrecking Ball. And Mary said, no way, because it's one of those Fox glorious movie palace theaters, Atlanta, Detroit, St. Louis. So there was this whole renovation and concerts touring Broadway. And then it was right at the time where touring Broadway really was becoming an institution. I mean, what touring Broadway is now and what it didn't exist 30 years ago. People don't quite understand that. Um,
Right,
so it was that. And then they got involved in Chicago with a guy named Mick Levitt, and all those off-loop theaters they owned. The Royal George, I can't remember the one where Blue Man was. They sort of owned the leases or what it was. And Mick had the vision to go to Broadway producers and say, for plays, don't tour your play through Chicago. Let me do a sit down production for you. And had huge success with like Launch Yonkers. And this is all before us.
right.
When I joined in, they had just begun, like, they had done Picasso at the La Panagile with the great late Joan Stein off Broadway with her. And they were just tiptoeing into the Broadway environment with Jekyll and Hyde, which I call my PhD program.
Yes,
It was. And
yes.
that's kind of when I joined them. So Kristen was in Chicago. I was in St. Louis. This thing was happening. We really didn't really work together till kind of Charlie Brown. You saw us sort of going in and out.
Yep.
And then Millie was the event that really solidified our partnership. By that time, David and Mick had left, and it was us. So that's kind of how all that happened.
Okay. Um, yeah, I mean, I think back, you would go to the Fox and like the entire cast from Tommy, the tour, had signed it's really one of those places that if you get to work there, if you just look at the walls, maybe there's been a paint job since then, but
Nope, nope,
just
they're
like,
all preserved. And that, just
okay,
so you know, when you walk in the main door to backstage, the Charlie Brown, our Charlie Brown is right there up on the right. It's right there. I always look
go
at it.
there. I
Yeah.
love that. I love that. Do you kiss it? Do you like go
Yeah.
like
Well,
that?
it's too high, but I do kind of jump up. And actually, if I turn my thing around, one of the poster that is directly in my eye line every day is Charlie Brown, your signature, all the family. with the
How is
quote.
it
I
so?
told,
How could Kristen possibly have signed that? We must have had her on, somebody's shoulders to sign that high on the wall. You can go up the steps, and
yeah,
and
yeah.
it's perfect. So my recollection is you had gone to business school,
Hmm.
um, and loved theater always.
Yeah, eh, the journey, which is like all of us, not a straight line.
Yeah.
The things that came together was, um, for me, growing up, theater, Broadway musicals was this hobby, this solo hobby. My family moved around a lot when I was growing up, and to me, I was a library kid.
Mm.
Spent a lot of time, the cast albums, the scripts, and then it jumped to understanding. Um, I saw my first variety, and then you
Oh,
saw like road grosses, and I was like, oh, this is an industry, this is a business. And I've always been fascinated, like, how do things work? Like when I would, even as a kid, I'd go to a store and I'd look at a package or something's there and I'd be like, well, why did they choose that? Why is it here? How did it was just, I was odd. So that
you're
really,
like, come on, Isaacson, we have four more errands to run. We gotta
yeah, so it was kind of that. And
go.
so that, but it was all, I don't think I saw any professional theater till junior high or high school, maybe. It was all sort of this abstract hobby, and friends were, what are you doing? And it just sort of was this thing. Like Annie was epic for me because, for the kids, Hamilton now, it was life-changing.
Yeah.
It spawned a thing that I was fascinated. Like, there's a tour here, and there's a tour here, and there's a cast album, and I wait, they're going to like it was just fascinating to me how it all worked. And no one ever said you could do it or something. It was just this weird hobby. So, college, I had sort of the core of it all is journalism, what I would say. I was a theater critic for a while. I worked at McDonnell Douglas, then I worked at a university. And that was prior to all this. And that was key to really understanding fundraising. As a,
Uh-huh.
that's all university presidents do.
Right.
How things worked, working with people. I ended up the assistant to the president of the university, and I loved it. I was in the back room just putting the coal in the boiler and just sort of that. And that was really, and then during that time, I was going to school at night getting the MBA, and it all came together in a moment where it's a really bizarre story, but I ended up being a vice president for fundraising at the university, which was
Okay.
the biggest mistake because I had no, but there was just a serious thing. And then I had a moment where I was in this big office with this beautiful thing, and it was, I'm in the wrong story. And
So
I,
how old are you? Just to contextualize, you're still
yeah,
fairly,
I'm like early 30s, upper
yeah,
20s, yeah, yeah,
to have that sort of
yeah.
job. Yeah.
And also, the thing about universities that is magical, and also depending where you are in your life, is you blink and it's 20 years later.
Mm,
Like
yeah.
they have a rhythm, they have a thing which ironically I was able to
Yeah.
apply here, right?
Right. Right.
They have this, and I thought, I'm too young for this rhythm.
Yeah.
And so a series of
Oh, can
circumstances.
I just interject? Too cute.
I was like,
Anyway, I'm taking off my fingers off. Let's keep going.
that's great. Um, and so I called David Fay, who I knew because it was St. Louis University, which is down the street from the Fox. David and I had been on, committees together. I was a theater critic, and I knew he would have to take my call.
Yeah.
And I said, can we have lunch? And David's an amazing human being. You remember David. He's been running the Bushnell out in Hartford, I think, for 20 years now, done an
Yeah.
amazing
Yeah.
job.
Yeah.
And I took him to lunch. And to this day, I don't know why I did this. We were just talking, and David has an amazing mind. He's a great conversationalist. And we are talking, going into things. And he suddenly goes, so how are things at the university? And I said, well, actually, I'm leaving. And he's like, really? And I said, yeah. And and he said, well, what are you going to do? And to this day, I don't know why I did this. I looked at him and I said, I think I should come work for you. And he was like, he looked at me oddly. And, I thought he would just dismiss it like, oh, blah, 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 And he said, really? Why do you think that? I was like, holy shit. And I just began talking about everything I knew about the business and this and I was fascinated by it. Da, da, da. And he looks at me and goes, how do you know all this? And I said, it was just kind of this hobby growing up. I still do it. I kind of watch it all. Um, and I had been in college an usher at the Fox Theater, which was my, master's before the PhD, I guess. Um, and to this day, he looked at me and he said, huh, that's really interesting because Mick and I were just talking today. We're taking a show to Broadway, and I need to bring somebody on to kind of help me. And I was like, okay. And he had sort of alluded in the conversation, and I found out when I got there it was really true that he'd kind of lived a Murphy Brown situation, like all his assistants had been not successful. And so I said to him, I said, look, at the university is paying me through the rest of the summer. I'm fine. How about this? Give me something to do, a project. We will work together, we'll collaborate. I'll do it for free. And the deal is if you like what you get, you hire me on Labor Day. And he said, okay. And I started like the day after Labor Day. And 4 weeks later, he sends me to the NAMT festival. And I came back and I was like, there's this weird, quirky new adaptation of Thoroughly Modern Millie. I think we should look at that.
Wow.
I know it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, so Millie was, I'm trying to think of the timeline
Yeah.
of Charlie Brown and Millie. Can you help me with that
Yeah.
for a minute?
So this is fall of 96.
Okay,
The show he was talking about was Jekyll and Hyde, which opened in spring of 97.
right.
Charlie Brown was just beginning in conversations being put together.
Okay,
And then the NAMT Festival Millie was fall of 96. And then it took a couple years to put the deals together, figure it out, blah, blah, blah. And then we went into development.
okay. And there are, I mean, we could really, can you just off the top of your head, and we're obviously going to talk about the fact that you have created casts at the Muny that mirror completely every cast you would have on Broadway if you were doing the same show. I mean, part of the Muny's appeal, and there have been so many beautiful articles as of late deservedly shining a light on the fact that all of these Broadway performers, if you were interviewing Jessica Vosk about her time at Muny or her time on Broadway in Hell's Kitchen, it would be the same article, just with different sorts of ambient noise around what it takes to put the production on. And
Yeah.
yet the story of the Muny is more exciting because of the challenges that every show has and because of the community that comes together to withstand the challenges, right?
Yeah.
You know, but so that's sidebar. We'll get back to that. Um, just at the top of your head, imagine your own IBDB page. Do you remember the order of the shows that you've done commercially outside of the Muny? This is a test, a
This is
speed
a tough
test.
test.
Yeah.
Now it's a little unfair because I have some posters on my office so I can glance,
Okay. Well, we'll
but
take a shot if you do
if,
any
if,
out of
if, I,
order.
if I don't look, I
Okay.
mean, I mean, Jekyll, Charlie Brown, Millie, Cuckoo's Nest, Salesman, the Brian Dennehy Salesman. Great stories on that one.
Yeah.
Um, Legally Blonde,
Hmm?
Red, um, the Paul Rudd Grace is in there somewhere. Um, uh, Fun Home, Fun Home, Fun Home.
Hmm.
Uh,
Is Plaza Suite right after Fun Home, or is there something in between?
Fun
Maybe.
Home is 2015, so there has to
Yeah. There's
be
almost 10
something.
years. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, oh God. Plaza Suite. I'm just going to jump to Plaza Suite.
Mhm.
Parade, Appropriate. David Byrne, the amazing David Byrne.
Oh my God, that show.
Um, oh, well, the national tour of 9 to 5, which is an amazing story. I'm really proud of that one. Oh my God, The Wiz. This is tough.
You have
Um,
so many children.
yeah, I guess, yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
know. It's crazy. I've been so lucky. I've been so lucky.
I think that are all of those with Kristen Kasky.
All of those are with Kristen Kasky. Yeah,
So I want to talk about partnership,
yeah.
because that's so huge in both hats that you wear and the places that you work. I really do remember you and Kasky having this incredible rapport really early on, where if there was anything behind the scenes going on that was stressful, there were never two people more able to protect the creative company from being aware of that. And
Mhm.
if you guys needed our help in any way, there was never a company that wanted to be more supportive of what your need was because of all the goodwill, right?
Mhm.
That starts from day one. And part of that infectious feeling was your passion for the thing you were doing. And so, as we know, producing means having a lot of things going on at once because you don't know what's going to stick. One of the things that's part of it, aside from the skill set to produce, and yet every single one of the shows that you are working on thinks they're the only one at that time. Like you're able to laser focus. What is it? It's one thing to have like a business degree and grad school experience, but you also have to like really love the thing. It's what people love crunching numbers and figuring out financial puzzles, which is an incredible thing because raising money for most people is the least exciting part of producing. What is it about a reading that you would see or something coming across your desk or Kristen saying, "Will you come with me to this? Because I think this might be for us." Like, how do you know this is the thing that you are going to marry for a long time? Everyone involved. Like, what happens to you when you're in the room with the thing that you're going to do next?
Well, um, I think for Kristen and I in our partnership, it's really interesting because one of the things I hadn't really, if as we were doing that crazy list, um, it's all not one thing, right? It's there. And what that I think reflects is our mutual ability to be inspired by either a person, an artist who's come to us and the way they're talking about it and what it could be, that we both look at each other and go, that's let's go here. Let's see what's there. Um, very often at this point, there's something that exists, a script, a couple songs, where you can get the spirit, the heart of it, the possibility of it. Um, so it's very it's it's very intuitive. It's sort of that. And you do ask the question, is this something I want to live with? Because you're right. It's so hard and it takes any Broadway musical, 5, 7, years. And so the people and the work have to be something that you are happy to live with. And not, there's always going to be challenges and there's times you're always mad at your kid, right? But there's something about it that you're really excited to bring to the world. And then as a producer on the left brain, which you alluded to, and this is what, and you have to know as a producer, I love producers. They get such a bad rap sometimes, and people don't understand how we really try to help each other and support. Um, you you have to be able to somehow in your mind know, and you could be completely wrong, who wants to see this show, who you're serving. Like, who are the people that if you get this great, this is going to make, they're going to want to come. Going to put money down and come. And you, it's easy to get that very wrong, but you can't do the endeavor unless you know that. Like, I have a sense of it, at least for me, and I believe that for Kristen. So you sort of have these two things as you're setting out, and then shows kind of find their way, and the number one counsel is, because everyone gets so overwhelmed, and what's going to happen in Broadway and stuff, and you just have to help everybody, like, our job right now is this step. Let us get to here, and then that will the universe, whatever, will get to that next step. But let's make this step what we all hope it is. What are we trying to accomplish? And that, I mean, interestingly enough, Fun Home was such a honest act. It began as an act of love of our dear friend Janine. She and Lisa had started it in nascent, and that had kind of fallen apart. And they came to us and said, "Would you know, pick this up?" And interestingly enough, that's one of the few books I had ever read where I was like, "This is a great idea for a musical." Oddly, it was the weird thing. And I had told Janine that I was so pissed off when I found out she was doing it, blah, we weren't involved, but it's sort of whatever. And so Kristen and we sort of got it where they could take that next step. And I remember going to the first time we heard sort of a reading, that thing. And at that point, she and Lisa had, I think, Changing My Major, Ring of Keys, a couple. Sam was not involved at this point, and just a couple things where I was like, and you say to yourself, I remember saying to myself, Isaacson, you call yourself a producer. Now it's the time you better damn well prove it. Like, you just have to go. And Kristen felt the same way. And so we took that along. But I honestly thought in the left brain, this is going to be one of those musicals that the industry loves. We'll go off Broadway. We'll make the CD. It'll be ever for every college and university. Like, I thought, this is its pipeline. This is its future. And what is the business model for that? That's kind of where I thought that's where this is going to go. And I remember sitting in our first preview with the public and feeling the audience, and I was like, oh no, oh, this is telling me something completely different. And it was just so, I know it sounds kind of treacly, but the process leads you to the moment, to the space, to the future. Oh my God, please cut that out.
But I think it's actually literally the journey. I mean, you may feel like those words seem corny to you, but in that particular story, was that usual for you to start? I mean, obviously Hamilton is another show that started at the public and then went on to have a grand
Mhm.
Broadway career. Is that something you had done a fair amount before? I feel like many of your things were just either out of town to Broadway, but not off Broadway first.
It's funny you said that. I just remember the list. Bring it on. How can I forget that? Anyway, so Millie was out at La Jolla. Bring It On was at the Alliance. Becoming Nancy was at the Alliance. Again, in the midst of it, obviously Lisa had a very strong relationship with Oscar at the Public, and Janine did too, because that had been Caroline.
Right, right, right.
So when we began the conversations, we immediately talked to Oscar and Mandy, who was there at the time, and it was just great. It was an instant love fest partnership because everyone's committed. We don't know how we're going to figure this out. We're going to figure this out. And at that point, the thing we saw, there was another regional theater that will remain nameless that had wholly committed to the artist. We'll do this. And they saw it and they got scared and they didn't do it. Yeah.
Huh. Okay,
So God love Oscar and everybody. They said, we will have the eventual home when we're ready. We'll do
right.
it. That's everything, right? And then after that was when Sam Gold came on, and that magic happened with the three of them, and then Danny, and all the things begin to happen.
Truly. And I can't believe that was 10 years ago. It was
Yeah.
so, were you at the reunion concert
At
at
the pub, yeah,
the
yeah,
Jazz Club? We must have been there at
yeah,
a different performance. Because also just as a concert, it's just incredible when material is that strong. I
yeah.
mean, it worked with no set. I mean, it
Yeah.
just worked. It was
Yeah.
incredible. So the Muny is what's so special about it is you're not so far creating new work. It is titles that everybody recognizes. And I think, I haven't been out there and I really must come see a show at the Muny.
Please.
It sounds, can I stay with you?
Yeah. No, 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 seriously, you can. We literally, Joe and I, because so many people were coming, we have a beautiful guest apartment in our
Okay.
building. You're coming.
Great, I'm
Yeah.
coming. Um, the idea of an outdoor theater
Hmm.
that is subject to all of nature. How many seats does the Muni hold?
11,000.
11,000 people. I thought the Fox was big. Um, I just love, I know that it's not like 11,000 people vote on their favorite show, but I do know that there's a real community spirit in sort of curating a season that you help manipulate one way or the other. Like you're giving specific choices for people to vote on, not any musical that ever existed at any time.
Right.
Um, I love the idea. I'm going to misquote you, and you can probably say it better yourself because it's you. But there was something in an interview I listened to you talk about what a title, what a show immediately brings up for someone. People who grew up with musical theater, you obviously have people coming who didn't grow up with it, but for the most part, people who love musical theater, you can, I'm in the wrong story, like that's me at every dinner that I'm at. We break into song. There isn't a lyric that can express how we're feeling better than we can. And that is like guides us through life. When we don't know what to say, we can grab a Sondheim or a Finn or we have people
Yeah.
help us. So the idea that have you been there 20 years? How long have you been there now?
My first season was 2012, so this is my 14th season.
Okay,
Yeah.
I said 20, but this is an evergreen podcast. It will be 20 when someone finds future people. How do you think about which titles, which summer, which people, to talk a little bit about the machine that is the Muny, and yet it feels so unmachine-like in the spirit of it.
Yeah. Um, so the season is always 7 shows. And uh, so, 7 blank pages or canvases. Um, but there's sort of some pillars. There's always one big, it's a huge community ritual, the big family show. Disney's fill in the blank. It's Frozen this year, and that has its own power. That has its own power because it's people bringing their kids to the community for a time. When you have the privilege of Disney work on your stage, not only does it bring stories and characters they are connected to and care about, the generations of that word Disney, everyone feels welcome. And which ties into the central idea and purpose and continual work of the Muni is this is a place where we want everyone in our community to be welcome. So you always have one of those. Every year, each of my seasons, I've done at least two new shows to the Muni stage. So it's work that's never been produced on the stage before. So that's recent stuff off Broadway. Sometimes going back into the vaults, something that got missed. Then I try to do two classics, and that has all really transformed over time. And really, classics are now two categories. The first is something from the ever diminishing box up to 1964.
Uh-huh.
And then the real classics now to the audience and the people and their lives is 75 forward, with Nader being the Cameron masterpieces. Like those are their classics of their lives.
Right.
People who sat in the seats in the 80s, it was My Fair Lady, right?
Correct.
You see this thing and where they always used to do prior to me, like sometimes 3 or 4 pre-64 classics. Now it's there, and that's its own conversation. So that's sort of 5-ish, and sometimes they cross. Frozen's a new show and the family, you sort of get that. And then the other two, once I have the five, you begin looking musically where we are, story-wise. What's an adventure? I've been talking to directors and choreographers about their dreams, different, artists. Like my dream has always been to play such and such part. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. What if
Let me see if
so
I can make that happen.
let me see if I can make that happen
Yeah.
and let's do that. And so it sort of becomes this goulash. And then what I do, again, sort of that intuitive thing, the cards aren't printed, but I write them on notes cards. I stick them up here and I just stare at it. And I just am like, okay, what is this? Because for our subscribers who give us 7 goes, I want to give them a hell of an adventure. And for the muscle of the theater and the artist here and my incredible crew, they love it. Give it, let's go there. Let's go. So each show needs to be very different from the one before it. And then if you're a subscriber, I'm going to give you an incredible adventure. And then also, and again, this goes to my thing is, if you're going to see 7 shows at the Muny any season, you're going to be blown away by the power of the musical, what musicals are and what they do for us. So I look at it that way, like, do we have a drama? Do we have, like you sort of do that. It's run up against, we're doing models with, Kofi in the business end, sales projections, all kinds of things. And then you announce it and go like this.
Kofi is your partner,
Yes.
just for people listening.
Yeah. Kofi's the
Watch
president.
the Tonys. Yeah.
And it's funny you talk about Kristen and, we've been partners since 1990, I don't know, 7, 8, I don't know how we clock it. Um, and, Kofi and I have been partners for 3 years now. He replaced a guy named Denny Reagan who here. And, partnerships, I love partnerships. I I love theater in the sense that it is the collective. It is that everyone's contributing what they've got. Like it's the dialectic, it's the what if, it's all those things. I mean, I don't understand people like that, but I also particularly don't understand people in theater, whatever their job is, they think it's about them.
Right.
Because how can you look at all this and think it's about any one person?
Right.
And that actually genuinely makes me that gives me the buzz. I like that to see colleagues succeeding at who and what they are.
Right.
And I think one of the things it's so sweet what you said about Chris and I, and I think one of the things that was sort of our hallmarks, other people's success never bothers me. Like
Hmm.
that's great.
Yeah.
Like, I just sort of look at it that way.
Yeah.
So, um,
Well, why are you so healthy? Why are you such a
uh,
healthy person in body and
well,
spirit, do you think?
there's some bruises, and you knew me at a period where I guess I sort of, it was I had I would say, my mid to late 20s to early 30s personally were very rough. And um I was really good at keeping it, private or, that. And once things collapsed and, I got myself into therapy, as we all do. And, I'd read enough to know. I walked in and I said, I don't want to bitch about these people. I want to talk about what allowed me to be treated this way or get involved or allow this in my life. And it was a big turnaround. It was a huge turnaround, that work of understanding. And I had a parent, my parents really were not happy when I came out, and we had a period of estrangement for probably, I'm gonna say 7 to 10 years, maybe. Um, and it was actually great. I kind of recommend it for everybody. Like it was fantastic.
It doesn't even have to be so dramatic in its
Yeah, yeah,
just a
yeah.
great
It just sort of
remember.
was like the mistakes I'd made and what I was suddenly okay, you need to be a fully formed human being, boom, boom, boom. And, that's when a lot of this stuff happened because it freed up something.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you know, um, And you know how it goes every day. You're never perfect and it's all a challenge. But, and then a great love came into my life and that's everything, you know.
I guess some people might wonder when you have such a huge New York and national producing career, um, and have stood on the Tony Award stage multiple times and have been so instrumental in moving Broadway to the place it is now in terms of all of the things you said you care about in a show and what to feed an audience, and help an audience and a community grow in the way that you do. I understand the idea of job security, but you have job security as a Broadway producer. What is it that keeps you running this unbelievably huge theater year after year after year, which, with all of the beauty and love, I'm sure is very stressful also? What keeps you there?
Um, well, it's been different things at different points at the journey. And I would say the first 3 to 4 years were really rough, and I wasn't sure I was going to make it because
Taking it on.
taking it on and what I thought when I meet with interns who I love, we have this amazing interns program here. I say, here, I've got a list of things, life things that no one ever tells you that I'm going to tell you. And it's going to be okay, but these are going to throw you. And I was like, number one is everyone lies to you in a job interview. You will be lied to.
Uh-huh.
It's okay. You'll get in and figure it out. My experience here about what the Muny hoped to be and stuff, I I was like, I felt lied to. And so it felt a singular thing for a period of trying to make the work better for the audience. The way it was produced, the culture throughout, backstage and stuff was completely unacceptable to me. And for the first couple of years, now slowly, as I gathered my team, many brilliant people, foremost my production supervisor, Tracy Utz Myers, and people came. Now, what was most beautiful about it and deeply moving to me as I began making changes on the stage and thing, the audience was with me 1,000%.
Hmm.
Like I knew oh, okay. I just had to get everything between me and them. And then the bigger dream, and this is real Don Quixote shit, was this institution with 107 years and its history, it's a mirror to this community of what it can be and possibility. And, St. Louis was going through some rocky times. Business moved out in the 80s. Like, like all of the stuff in the middle has been trying to refine itself. And I wanted my community, this community that given me my life, that given me my husband, that given me family, everything. I wanted to sort of use this, or I hope to use it as a clear example of the possibility of transformation, what people can do together. Like, and it's since it's yours, this is St. Louis. Look what you're seeing behind it. And what's so beautiful about this moment and the Tony is that's what people are talking about. Like I said that to Jason, you're giving us an acknowledgement of a transformation, and we've all worked really hard on that. So it's sort of so there were different markers along the way where I went, if we hadn't gotten the new stage, I'm not sure I would have stayed because at that point I realized I was getting to a point, I don't know, I've been here 7, 8, 9, 10 years, where some of the shows I had to begin redoing again, some of those classics, right? And it didn't interest me doing it a second time with this. Like I'm weird. Like once it's done, it's done. Like so, but because we had a whole new way to tell the stories for the directors, for the choreographers, I was like, okay, I can re-engage in this next chapter.
Was the capital campaign was how much was raised to redo the theater?
$100 million. So I know it's insane. We were coming up in the hundred, and the irony was when I came in, started here, they had been existing on ticket sales and a few phone calls for philanthropy. But
Uh-huh.
you see this thing happening, and it was based on a production model and production budgets where the work was just always going to be frozen at a certain level.
Right, right. It couldn't
So
honor the possibilities of
it
what it could.
couldn't honor the possibility. That is the beautiful phrase.
Right.
I came in and I was like, look it, we're not ready for the future. So part of it was understanding that, and God love the board. We began to grow a development arm. And what was very hard about that conversation was in the community, the Muny is viewed as successful. We don't get government funding, we don't get anything, right? And then suddenly you have to start talking about need, and they're like, what, like it's a new conversation.
Right.
So it was kind of tiptoeing in, and we got to the 100th. And my point of view was we either get to 100 and say, what a ride, and
Yeah.
put it all down and become a nice, something. I said, if we're going to keep doing musical theater and if we're going to honor the legacy of this theater from the 20s, 30s, and 40s, where it was the best in the country, we got to redo all of this. And there were several people in the community who were like, got it. And then, and for the first time, they did a capital campaign, which if you've never done a capital campaign to do 100 million, that's insane. But it was a testament to what the connection that this community feels to these people in this space and this ritual, this summer gift. And
It's really
and it
incredible.
just it changed everything. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you really talk about like feedback. How am I doing? Here's how you're doing,
Yeah.
right? That's such a beautiful testament to the love of storytelling that you've always had and the love of being in support of glorious storytellers. Um, Mike, it is really heady for me to see you and have this time with you. Oh my God, this is the first time I've cried in any interview other than in response to some devastating story that someone's telling me. Um, these are truly happy tears. I have,
There they are.
there
Yeah.
they are. There they are. Charlie Brown, obviously it's no secret to people who listen. It's called Little Known Facts, this podcast, because of the song that I sang in Charlie Brown. It was the answer to the question before I even knew I needed a title for something. Um, Charlie Brown was the answer to a question I didn't know I had my entire life. And and the sort of if you think of just all of the ways it has reached um other other people, like this podcast is a perfect extension because that was the real beginning of an understanding of community and building something I didn't know how to do. It's very easy to come into a place where you've done something many times. I'd done many plays. I'd never done a musical. It was such a strange miracle in my life that I was chosen to be in a musical as a non-musical theater person, yet a musical theater lover. I clung to those cast albums. They saved me in my life. And so the idea that I could then be a part of like the thing that saved me was cray cray. Um, those friendships, those relationships, I'm seeing BD tomorrow, it just goes and goes and goes. Um,
One of the things I try to explain to people is one of the magic, and it's here too, but also if you have done a Broadway show together, you have that for the rest of your life. Like
yeah,
their connection, even if you go your separate ways, when you find each other, when you reach each other, the only, the only thing I can think is like mentally is equivalent to sort of being in the military where you're serving in a certain way and you have that. And
yeah,
I remember I went back to Back to the Future and, knew all that cast and of course our beloved Roger. And but I saw he had a group or something, blah, blah, blah. So I thought, oh, I'm not gonna, get in his way, blah, 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 blah. And he was sort of down, and I was on the stage and just talking to a whole group of beautiful people. And all of a sudden I hear this, Mike, and I turn around and I'm like, hey, Roger. And we just looked at each other,
yeah,
and it was like, and this smile, you could tell everybody's like, what's going on here, But it was that it is such a gift to being on the planet.
Yeah.
and your life. And I
And
always
it's
feel
beyond words because I felt that I saw you in the lobby at the Public Theater, which maybe was the first time I had seen you in a very long time. Um, and we just hugged each other
yeah.
because it's it's either we have to go away to a deserted island, all of us for a month, and just
Yeah.
talk about and this and that and all of all of the people.
And that amazing night you talked about in St. Louis, the
Yeah,
snowstorm. It's a 4,000 seat theater. There's maybe 40 people there. Jim Harker, people are sitting up in the second balcony, and
yeah.
Harker's like,
Our
feel free
stage
to move.
manager.
I'm sorry, stage manager, feel free to move down. Nobody moves, right? Just hilarious. And I'm watching this, and the set broke, and I realize like everyone's just making stuff up to get through this. And I go backstage because I'm like, this is a noises off moment. I want to be as close to the action. I'm never going to this. And I'm wandering the wings. And I don't know if you remember this, but you made an exit and you came and you're in the blue with the Mary Janes. It was just heaven. And you just came right at me. And your dresser was the right. You didn't even look. You like handed you the water. And you're like doing this. And the two of us. And at that point, for some reason I can't remember in one of those chase scenes, Chenoweth jumped on Roger Bart's back and they were doing like the backstroke across the stage because the thing wouldn't move.
Yeah, yeah.
And you handed the water bottle back to the dresser. You looked at that, you looked at me and you went, "This is my life." And you walked out on stage.
Went right back on. Um, I will just say this. My dad died in January 7th of this year. And as he got older, his memory declined. So that short-term memory, not great, memories of the past as if they happened yesterday. And it's kind of an incredible thing because he had so many great stories. Frankly, I was like, I'll listen to that again. Um, but one of the stories that he told 2 days before he passed away to my daughter and son was the story of and he remembered it like in such perfect detail. I feel like if we went and looked up the flight number, it was in fact the flight number. My mom and dad were such huge fans of the show and really became sort of surrogate parents. We live in New York, so most people's parents aren't around, and they would just be around the show all the time. But the night they flew to see this show in St. Louis, they were the last plane to be allowed to land, the last plane out of New York and the last plane to land in St. Louis. They were meant to meet friends who lived in St. Louis to go to the show, and their friends were like, "We're not driving. There is an insane snowstorm." So somehow, this is when you're like holding a triptych that you've printed out as a map before you even land. The car rental people were very cautious about, they were like, you have to sign this. We are not responsible for you driving this car. They end up being a little bit late, just like a hair late. And you were like, don't worry, I will meet them in the lobby. I will make sure that they get here if they get here. I don't think we had, I don't even know. Maybe we had cell phones back then. Doesn't matter. I'm on stage. I can't talk to them
Yeah.
anyway. They get there miraculously. You escort them to their seats, which is, you say 40 people. I think we're being generous. I think it was 40 people, including you and the entire cast and crew. And they sit down, and Roger gets to his big supper time number. And because this was not being recorded for posterity, that particular show, and Roger would ad lib a little bit during this
Oh, yeah.
vaudeville number. He'd say, "Welcome, Mr. and Mrs. Levine. Glad you made it," in the middle of supper time. That's how intimate a show it was. And also, no one knew what the lyrics were meant to be. So, as far as this is what Out of Town is all about, what are the new lyrics going to be? Anyway, the idea that Roger Bart, Tony Award winning Snoopy from that show, uh, incorporated their arrival into the show that night, was like, we loved each other so much. They all knew how worried I was about them getting there. You were so aware that I was so worried about them getting there safely. Um, 2 days before my dad died, he told the story again of
Oh my-
Snoopy, the lyrics verbatim as they were that night. And it just remained. that show just in my family. Forget what it's meant to the world, forget what my new philosophy did for a whole new generation of, musical theater girlies. Um, it's just very meaningful. And that moment of Roger, who had become my brother in that show, my parents were his parents. Like there was just a way that we took care of each other. That's like a small, sweet moment. But on in his 95th year of life, uh, that was the last story he told to my kids about things that brought him joy or made him feel special in the world. And so that's just an anecdote. I don't talk that much about myself on the podcast, but because I'm with you, I just had to share that all of that, the goodwill, the love, it extended beyond just each other in the show to each other's families, to every single person who came to an 11 a.m. show on a Saturday, and we went to
On Saturday. Yeah, we tried.
and we
Well,
went.
it's also so funny because, like I said to you, the poster is very prominent in my
Yeah,
office. See it every day. You always want to start where you started.
yeah,
When the interns come in here, they're all like, "Oh my God, Charlie Brown!" Like they cannot believe they're like you. I was like, "Yeah," and because they can see all your signatures and all of
yeah,
that. They're like that.
yeah.
And what's so interesting is the legacy of the show is completely different. And so I sort of say to them, I said, "Yeah, we ran 6 weeks," and they're like,
And six
"What?
6 months.
6 months?" I'm not talking about the tour. I'm talking about on Broadway, whatever it
Well,
was.
no,
Yeah,
we
yeah,
were on Broadway
yeah.
from January to the Tonys.
To the Johnny's, yes, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. But what?
months, not weeks.
I
Yeah,
know, 6 months,
it
yes.
felt like six
Yeah,
weeks. It
yeah.
was
But they
heartbreaking.
all thought it ran for years and years and thing. And I said,
Yeah,
but here's the thing, and here's the impact, and here's the relationships. My relationship with Jerry Mitchell began with Charlie Brown.
yeah,
Michael Mayer did Millie. You see, I said these things, they're the most beautiful soil. Then a generation fell in love with that CD and all of it. And I've always had it could be wrong. I think Charles M. Schultz died maybe 2 years after that. It wasn't that long.
we sang at his memorial, Kristen,
Yes.
Anthony, and I.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's right.
we
I
went.
remember the daughter calling me. I forgot about that.
Yeah,
Um, and then after that, there was a huge lot of writing and awareness of the impact of Peanuts on popular culture. It's a big renaissance now, too, apparently,
yeah,
um, of Schultz and what that was and what the psychology of it. And I thought, if we had opened now, they all would have gotten it.
yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean?
But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, that's the part that as a producer more than anything. There's all of these elements that come together, and then there's just that unknowable, undefinable. I mean, we were nominated for a Tony, and
Won
we
the drama desk.
right, and had we won, it would have been a different story. And I remember, was it uh Reba McEntire um took over for Bernadette. Annie, it was Annie Get Your Gun
Yeah.
year that won. And I remember, thinking, oh my God, they don't, I mean, not that you need a Tony, but they were a hit. They could tour, they didn't need the Tony in the same way we as a business needed the Tony. And it was so like, oh, we were so close, But
Yeah.
so many Tonys were won for our show anyway. And at the end of the day, to your point, it lives. It lives and it lives and it lives and it
It
brings
lives,
hope.
it lives forever.
Yeah.
And, you
Maybe
know,
we'll do a reunion concert. Maybe we should think about that. That would be
good
really
think
fun.
about that. People would
Yeah.
go insane.
Yeah. But anyway, you
Yeah.
have 7 shows. In my next episode with you, I'm going to say maybe just do 5 and you'll it'll be easier. Um, Congrats on your Tony for
Thank
the
you.
movie.
Yeah.
What a beautiful, now that I really understand sort of the history of it, and I love that Kasky gagged you in that way. It's so great. Um,
Okay.
I love you. I get to say, and all the universe can hear, thank you for what was one of the most extraordinary times in my life. Continue to feel the love from that show and to see you today. Before I let you go, is there a little known fact about Mike Isaacson you want?
Oh, yes. I have had the most wonderful time re-listening, so I am ready for this.
Okay.
My little known fact, I literally can cook. I cannot cook. I have a phone, so I can cook. And if it's in a box, that's cooking, or like I just have not developed that at all.
Okay.
But I make the most brilliant chocolate chip cookie. And I will lay down with people and they'll be like, and they'll take it and they're like, oh my God, I make an amazing, it's my stress relief. I bake, I mail them to friends. It just sort of gets me there. And my beloved husband, Joe, his parents, they're so sweet. They've been such a gift to my life. And one day they called us and they said, we want you to come over for dinner. I'm like, okay, we come over. We walk in and they are like, my father-in-law, Lee, is in a tux. Mary's in a formal gown. Our My sister, one of my sister, one of Joe's sisters is there, and she happened to be visiting. They're in formal gowns. I'm like, what are they thinking? And they were like, we know you've won Tonys, you've known doing this, but we want to give you an award. And they got like a bowling trophy and they stuck a chocolate chip cookie on it. And they gave me, and it's here in my office. It's like, I don't have a Tony in my office. I have the Golden Cookie Award here. So that's my little known fact.
Of all the, okay, send me a photo of the cookie so that when we post about this, social media will get to see it.
Absolutely.
I will see you soon, Mike. Thank you
Yep. Please
so.
come visit. We will take care of you. You will have a great time.
I will. We will.
All
All
right.
right. I
All
love
right.
you.
Love
Have a
you.
great day.
Bye.
Bye.